Good morning and welcome to day 6 of Vlogmas. We're going to have another beautiful sunny day here today. The sun has just come up over the mountains. But there's a bit of a breeze today, so I think it's kind of chilly out there. I haven't gone out. I'll have to do that shortly. It's garbage day and they've already picked up the organic waste, so I have to go get that container and move it to the backyard. I'm not looking forward to that. What was I gonna say? I've been up for a while. Just starting my second cup of tea. I've been working on my Land of Sweets cowl and watching some podcasts, catching up on some Vlogmas episodes from. I watched Suburban Stitchers last night, and this morning I've been watching Little Bobbin's Knits. It's funny because she's doing the Land of Sweets cowl also, and also has a tea advent calendar, so it's interesting to see the parallels there. So I'll show you today's yarn. It's beautiful soft blues and purples. It is from Handmaiden Kasbah in the November Sky colorway. I was trying to remember what I knit from this, and it was either, I have a feeling it was a shawl, but it might have been socks. I meant to look it up and I forgot. So I've got 4 out of the 8 rows done so far. So there's, you can see it kind of varies where it's quite blue and purple here, and other places it's more aqua. I think it blends in well with yesterday's stripes and the stripe on this side too. So it was a good choice. I'm enjoying working with it. It has a bit of cashmere in it, feels good. So as I mentioned yesterday, I cleaned my craft room and I did a little tour last night. So I'm going to insert that here. So I'll give you just a quick little, this is the door I just came in. Give you an idea of orientation. That window looks out the front of the house towards the street. And back to the door again. So maybe I'll take you first to my sewing table. This is, I've had this desk probably 30 years. Had it for a long time. My sewing machine has sat on that. Obviously in the drawers, just sewing supplies. And there's my sewing machine. It's a Janome, as it says on the cover. I'll give you a quick look. This is a Janome Skyline S5. And I've had it for about a year and a half. I first heard about it from Isabel on the Fluffy Fibers podcast. She had been researching to find a sewing machine that was good for both garment sewing and quilting, and this is what she came up with. And so when I went looking for a machine, I took her recommendation and checked it out, and it seemed to be just what I needed also. So I've had my old sewing machine since 1979. I bought it just before I went into grade 11. And it was a Kenmore, very solid one. It was all metal. And it was a great machine and a very good machine at the time. Near the top of the line, I had been working summer job and had bought it at the end of the summer. And it served me very well for all those years. But I kind of outgrew it when I started doing the quilting. It just wasn't set up very well for that. This one is digital. That's brand new to me. So you turn on the switch and all that lights up, and then you can use the pad to choose all these different stitches for quilting and sewing, monogramming. So it's been a little bit of getting used to. I still refer to the owner's manual quite often, but I've really been happy with the way it sews and really like using it. It was a very good purchase. Let's go next to what would be a familiar background for any of you that watch my regular episodes. This is where I set up for recording. This is just a wall unit, obviously. Just got it at Home Depot, and in the baskets up there, the left side has project bags and my yarn, my ball winder and Swift. This basket here has a single fingering weight yarn like Tosh Merino Light for the most part, and basically shawl yarns there, more than one skein. This basket holds sweater quantities of fingering weight yarn, and this is just overflow from my regular fingering weight sock yarn. And I'll scoot down for now, and these 4 bins here are all my fingering weight sock yarn. The 2 on the left there are solids and semi-solids, and then the 2 on the right are multicolored, variegated. And then at the top I've got lace weight in these 2, and a DK Sport and worsted. The worsted are more like 1 or 2 skeins for scarves and things. My sweater quantities stored elsewhere, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then this is my gradient skeins are in that little bin. This drawer has my circular needles and crochet hooks. There's my thread for cross stitch, and just supplies in there. Various notebooks, patterns for my quilting stuff, still in here, or some of it. And, or I should say all of it. That's about all I have as far as quilting books go. It's probably some knitting patterns. I haven't even looked. Oh yeah, various odds and ends for knitting patterns in there. And crochet instructions and Afghan patterns in here. And then over here are just knitting patterns. Most of those I've knit at one time or another, but I just sort them by type and store them in there. And knitting magazines down at the bottom, along with a few knitting books that won't fit in my other storage area for books, and then just some various knitting and sewing supplies in those cupboards. To the side there, that's fabric for project bags and some completed bags in the bottom one. And that little stool or table I just use when I'm sewing to put things on next to my machine, and use it when I podcast to put some things on that I want to talk about. In the corner here, because there's nowhere else to put them right now, are in all those plastic storage bags. That's all my sock yarn scraps. And then in this bin here, those are commercial sock yarns, self-striping, self-patterning. So I kind of keep those separate from the other sock yarns. And don't get dizzy. Over on in here, this is a trunk that belonged to my husband's grandmother, and his sisters both had it before it came to me, and unfortunately they didn't take very good care of it. You can see the top's all watermarked and the veneers come off and such, but it still holds things. This is where I keep sweater quantities of yarn. Mostly worsted, little bit of DK. And the drawer at the bottom. Beads and yarn samples that get sent to me. Prescription bottles, that's just to carry beads in, hold beads in. Ziploc bags, stuff like that. In the corner, that tube is my blocking wires. And then my blocking mats are in here. And my soft blockers, I keep them in there too. And then these are just large bags, knitting storage bags, more like totes. And over here beside the trunk, those are projects for the most part that are in hibernation. I think in there I've got a couple of sweater quantities worth of yarn that got put right into a bag with intentions of knitting it right away, and then it never happened. And on this final wall, this is where I store various knitting books. This is the one that gets used the most. These are my sock knitting books. I realize I really do need to probably do a purge, because there's some books I'm just never going to knit from. On the other hand, sometimes I'd like to just take them out and look through them for inspiration. So to me, there's never, books are never wasted. And at the top here, I store my iron and quilting rulers, my sleeve board for pressing open seams that are hard to get at. I've had that thing, I think, since high school when I used to take a lot of sewing classes. Over here is just a clothes closet. I do have some craft supplies stored in there, but mostly it's just overflow for clothing. And usually my ironing board lives in front of my wall unit there, but it's out in the hallway at the moment to create some room. I don't usually put it away just because it's more of a nuisance to set it up. But I do have a home for it downstairs, but it's kind of a nuisance to leave it down there, so it usually lives in here. I'll give you a quick tour of my pictures I have in here. This is a cross stitch that I did. Well, they're all a while ago. I don't know when. This is, I might have shown this before in the podcast. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. If you move across to this wall, I know I showed these. I love these ones. Take time to knit and take time to stitch. And I try and do both. And then these pictures I first saw on the Knit Girls podcast, and actually the one on the left, I think it was Leslie had spoken to the artist after purchasing the picture on the right, and asked her to do one of her and Laura. So the picture on the left is supposed to represent the Knit Girls. And then I just think this is so fun. So again, so you don't get sick, I'll just spin around again. So there you go. You have a sense of where it all happens. Sewing all happens in here. Most of the knitting actually takes place out in the living room, but as you can see, the storage takes place here. So I hope you enjoyed that little tour. Truth is, it probably won't stay that tidy for long. Won't be long before things start finding their way back on top of the trunk. That's my worst place for collecting stuff in there. So I do plan to record a little later this morning. So I thought I would do the Advent calendar tea right now, and then I can get this this video up and processing while I work on show notes. So day 6. I can't believe we are a quarter of the way through Advent already. That struck me last night as I was heading to bed. So number 6. Kind of looks pretty regular. Organic North African mint. Oh, well, mint makes sense for this time of year, doesn't it? It smells really nice. It smells minty, but also kind of grassy. I don't know if that's maybe not the best word, but there's something in there besides mint and tea. Let's see. There it is. Green tea, ginger, peppermint, cardamom, licorice root, fennel, clove, black pepper, kosher. So I'm not sure, maybe it's just the green tea. Anyway, it sounds lovely. I'm not going to drink it now. I'll make it and have it while I'm recording later. I've just made myself a cup of Irish breakfast tea that I'm going to have. So there's where the drawer fits in. So it's a little star today. So yeah, I'm going to just drink my tea and finish working on my cowl for the day. Then I'll sit down and do some show notes and organize for podcasting. So I'm hoping to podcast sometime before lunch today so I can get it up hopefully by this evening. So enjoy this in the meantime. Have a great day 6. Bye.